The Nintendo Switch's Link's Awakening remake is coming soon! Or by the time this video releases, oh god. It's already out, isn't it? Dang it.
Pop that sucker ring, 'cause we're determining the definitive edition of Link's Awakening today!
Link versus Link!
Gotta start it off right with the controversial topics.
I've seen lots of complaints on this, artistic direction, and I hate to disappoint, but I love these visuals. Link's Awakening having its own distinct art style will help it age with grace instead of looking like garbage years later. Greater processing power allowed the developers to put infinitely more detail into every corner of the game. Lost Forest now features a thick layer of fog. People's houses look lived in and loaded with personality. There's this attractive blur effect lining our screen edges, which adds to the island's illusionary vibe. Obviously, the team had a special place in their hearts for the original.
Even though I understand those who hate the toy-like or kiddie aesthetics on display here, it's all subjective.
In my mind, both DX and its remake look incredible, but the latter wins, adding in far more detail than the gameplay could ever dream. See what I did there?
Link's Awakening, like Majora's Mask, separates itself from a majority of the mainline Zelda titles by trying something unique with its story.
Throwing out the typical Ganon was here that had quickly become a series staple. This time, Link's out sailing when his ship crashes into Koholint Island, where he's tasked with awakening the Windfish. This is done by defeating 8 nightmares,
oh how cute,
which guard specific instruments within their respective dungeons. It's made clear partway through the adventure that maybe waking the Windfish isn't the black and white hero task it's cracked up to be. As the owl and multiple NPCs inform Link, their world and everything in it disappears upon his awakening. Link's even told that Koholint was previously a safe-ish place to live until he arrived, which triggered monsters springing up all over the place. Heck, there's even a place called Animal Village, where human citizens converse with what could be considered monsters.
I mean, look at all these happy faces.
I think Link's Awakening could have benefited from making Animal Village's citizens just random creatures you've been slaughtering in the overworld.
That probably would have made me cry as a child.
There's a lot of talk about this all being a dream and that waking is an inevitable part of dreaming, but this particular adventure falls into a lovely gray area. Maybe the only reason these monsters fight back at all is simply self-preservation. If you heard your family, friends, and entire livelihood was at stake unless this one man was stopped, wouldn't you do the same? Link even has a love interest this time around by the name of Marin, a wonderful girl who will also disappear. Meaning Link truly has a tough choice. Until she decides she wants to be a seagull.
Okay, hit the switch, let's blow this bitch up.
Not much has changed with the story in transition. A bit of text was cleaned up, and there's a couple helpful new sequences introduced, including one where leaving the trendy shop with the Yoshi doll prompts the child outside to tell Link where to go. There's even beautifully animated cutscenes to start and end the game properly. I wish the same animation was used for Link and Marin's touching ocean moment. Missed opportunity. Oh, and what the hell? The picture shop has been replaced with Dampy's Super Zelda Maker 2. We'll discuss Dampy later, but am I the only one who is excited to see Ratman work his magic in this reimagined world? Musophobia is a real thing, folks. Please consult your doctor. A topic not discussed enough in video game criticism is music. While gameplay is, and always will be, king, an incredible score can make or break a game. Two titles that immediately come to mind would be Undertale and Final Fantasy VII. Videos on those later. Feel free to disagree, but Link's Awakening holds my title for Best Game Boy Soundtrack, with Pokemon Gold and Silver right behind it. National Park theme be bopping, but nothing had me humming along like happening upon Marin singing in town square when I was a kid. This is followed up by what I believe to be one of the best Game Boy tunes and remixes of the main Zelda theme ever. This track smashes so hard. If you're not ready for adventure after hearing this, then just pull the plug already. One of my biggest fears with the remake's music was that it would be too scaled back. Calm tracks like Mabe Village work wonderfully for orchestral arrangements, but capturing all that frenetic 8-bit energy can't be easy.
That's why I'm happy to say they did a fantastic job! For the most part.
Link's Awakening for Switch takes an almost experimental approach to its soundtrack. Where I was expecting more of a grandiose, bombastic affair as per usual, Grezzo instead surprises with minimalism. A majority of these tracks only use the instruments needed and nothing else. This can lead to a few tunes sounding hollow or uninteresting, but for the most part is a massive success and does an even better job of separating Link's Awakening from mainline Zelda titles.
But not a huge fan of boss battles sounding like they're sung by a Pikmin choir.
And I feel the game has a bit of an over-reliance on stringed instruments, but there's bound to be at least a few misses here and there with this sort of thing. Its Game Boy predecessor wasn't perfect either. Some songs in the original were so ear-piercingly high-pitched, Grezzo decided to switch their octaves up. Check this out. Not to mention the annoying-ass power-up music, which constantly cut in to ruin everyone's enjoyment of this otherwise stellar soundtrack, has thankfully been toned down to a more reasonable level. Think you could have come up with a better idea than this shitty-ass 5-second loop we'd hear a million times, Nintendo? Multiple tracks on the shorter end have become fleshed out, most notably the dungeon medleys, which have a tendency to reincorporate their Game Boy themes as an added bonus.
Gotta love that nostalgia. Doesn't taste very good, though. Link's Awakening played like a Zelda game then, and plays like a Zelda game now.
It's a top-down, dungeon-crawling puzzler where players collect items to open more paths throughout the world and power up the protagonist. That hasn't changed. What has is a lot of technicalities in between. Firstly, the remake is apparently so faithful to source material that it doesn't allow omnidirectional movement, instead settling for the 8 directions we were stuck with in 1993. What an odd design choice, especially considering full movement shouldn't break the game in any substantial ways.
Whatever.
One thing I am grateful for is the complete elimination of game-halting text every time Link approached any obstacle. Instead, Grezzo gave players the ability to examine objects with the push of a button, a much-needed improvement. I guarantee my time wasted between screen transitions and text pop-ups during my re-recording of this game totaled to over an hour. In those screen transitions,
Forget about it.
Link's Awakening, which had low storage space due to the medium, divided its entire world into Game Boy screen-sized blocks.
Okay, Link to the Past, I see you flexing with that fancy scrolling, but I can't do that.
Splitting Koholint into squares means that not only can we emulate classic Legend of Zelda, we also only have to have 9 areas rendered at any given time, freeing up memory for the game to run correctly and also fit on a Game Boy cartridge.
I don't know if any of that's true, but I'm guessing it is.
This all gets tossed out the window in the remake, which leads to some truly interesting outcomes. Now, transitions are still used sparingly, mainly in dungeons or caves to maintain a semblance of the original, I'm guessing. But 2 big caveats I noticed. First, respawning. There existed an entire screen in Mabe Village covered in grass, usually netting Link a few extra rupees when needed. Well, it's still here, but when cut down, just regrows instantaneously the minute you turn around. Previously, I chalked respawning grass and enemies up to the Game Boy's technical limitations, but this is just odd. I don't know if Grezzo did this to needlessly mimic this sometimes annoying feature of its predecessor, or to make the island feel more dreamlike, but either way, the break in immersion wasn't worth its implementation. Would have made more sense to have it all return upon exiting a cave or a house. Second, frame rate. Both new and old run at 60 frames per second. Or they're supposed to. While DX falls short occasionally with frame drops, Link's Awakening Switch is plagued by them.
This is coming from a guy who grew up playing Nintendo 64. So yeah, I eat poor frame rate for breakfast.
There it is, poured into the bowl. Look at that shit, it tastes terrible.
You'll be lucky to see this game stay at 60 FPS for even a minute straight, unless there's close to nothing on screen. A freaking minute! I wonder how hard this weird respawn system hits Link's Awakening's performance. My guess would be a lot. On a positive note, items like the Pegasus boots and power bracelet now have designated buttons to make pausing less prevalent. While menu navigation was quick in the original, only having 2 buttons led to it constantly being opened in the dungeons and overworld. This, along with Manbo's Mambo now having the ability to warp Link to any discovered warp point, allows the game to have a much better focus on uninterrupted exploration.
Let's get to the real meat, though. Dungeons.
While they remain largely unchanged as far as layouts, many quality of life improvements were made. The map now displays a detailed layout, which helps tremendously with navigation. No more multiple room clear sound effects that were present in the original. Seriously, look at this.
Annoying.
Throwing pots to open doors used to be a crapshoot, as a breakable and barred door had the same sprites, making puzzle solving inconsistent. This is fixed with a pot symbol to clear up all confusion. Rooms where players had to defeat a mini-boss or specific enemies now remain open, instead of forcing a refight again and again. Nightmares are still far too easy, but a few seem to have been made slightly more difficult. That odd obsession with switch crystals is unfortunately still around, though. I mean, I maybe could understand using these a few times, but in over half the dungeons? Outside of dungeons, we have an expanded fishing minigame where a bottle can now be obtained. Oh yeah, there's bottles in the game now to store fairies, among other new additions like a tuning fork to find the hidden seashells, which have been bolstered to 50 instead of the original 26.
But it's not all positive, okay? I mean, come on. I'm Jonny Nitpick.
Like many other slightly underwhelming portions of the original, Trendy Game has also been given more significance, with multiple useful items up for grabs besides the Yoshi doll. And apparently, every item has the weight of a feather. And occasionally, the wider viewpoint can spoil some awesome surprises the original kept secret through clever camera angles. So I hate to say this, especially as I love Link's Awakening DX, But this remake is the definitive edition of Link's Awakening. Flaws and all.
Although I do have a few grievances.
A way to play through this game with the classic soundtrack would have been a nice touch, maybe as an unlock for a first-time clearing. And considering how closely this title mimics its ancestor, I'm pretty disappointed Grezzo didn't offer any sort of master quest with remixed dungeons and maybe even a flipped overworld. We have hero mode, but that's just the lazy tack-on addition every Zelda game gets nowadays.
Boring.
And this leads to my final point. If you've already played through and beaten the original Link's Awakening, do you really need this game?
Those looking for something completely new out of this title, besides cutesy graphics and a myriad of small adjustments, not all of which everyone would agree are unanimously positive, I would say no. You won't find a bevy of hidden extra dungeons or loads of fun little side quests and challenges to complete post-game that weren't here 20 years ago. And that's understandably a turnoff to some gamers.
As for me, I love the remake. But could they have added a little more content and made slight tweaks to create a better product? Yeah. Nitpick out.